Hey, it's Brandon Dawson here. Welcome to the B. Dawson Show. We're going to be talking about part 2 with Mason Walker of how to become the 10X employee or the entrepreneur. One of the things that I think we should talk about is you went to work at 41 grand. You worked for 2 years, I think, at 41,000 bucks. You're driving that old pickup truck, and one day you came in and said, "How do I get a raise here?"
Yeah, so no joke. I had a beautiful 5 Series, beautiful BMW, I had a gorgeous penthouse, 2-bedroom condo in downtown Portland. Life was amazing. Then I met this guy, and he offered me I told him, I said, hey, if I'm going to work for 41,000, I'm making 90,000. I need a nice place to live. I need a decent vehicle. And he says, don't worry, I'll figure that out with you. And what he didn't share with me is that he had a 1940s rental house that was like straight from 1942. It was called the Pear House and had pear-colored carpet, pear-colored paint, pear appliances. Had a little bit of a mildew mist to it, a little bit of an odor. Not exactly the kind of place as a 22, 23-year-old young man, that I really wanted to call home. And then he had this Dodge pickup, right, that he had bought at the auction that was just a jalopy, and even like he had bungee cords around the back of it to hold the canopy doors shut, right? And here I am, used to valeting downtown Portland with my beautiful 5 Series.
He said he started backing into things because it was an extended. It was an extended
log
cab.
bed, 3/4 ton, just a beast of a pickup. So fast forward 12 months into this gig, right? We've launched the company. I was our first employee. My sister joined us as our second employee as an intern. We're moving things along. We have a couple more team members that we've brought on, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm coming up now on 24 years old. We're finishing our first year in this company. I think I've done my part in helping support the team and Brandon's vision. So I'm excited to go into the office this day because I know it's my 1-year anniversary and Brandon is going to promote me. Because obviously, as many of us make those assumptions in life, in business and jobs, on my 1 year on anniversaries, it's time for a promotion, it's time for a title change, it's time for an increase in base and compensation. So I get to the office, a couple hours go by, Brandon's in his office, I'm making my calls, and I'm thinking to myself, he hasn't come to talk to me. Like this is my 1-year anniversary, and I cannot believe he hasn't come talk to me. So I sit there and I work a little longer. Now lunch has passed, and I think, unbelievable, right? I'm not sure why he can't, come see me or why he's not, taking me out to lunch to celebrate my 1-year anniversary. But I'm gonna go back in his office and I'm gonna talk to him. So I go back to his office and I say, hey, Brandon. And he says, what's going on, Mace? And I said, you got a minute? He says, yeah, of course, come on in. So I sit down. I said, hey, I'm not sure if you remember, but today is actually my 1-year anniversary. And he goes, yeah, I remember. And I look at him, I go, oh, you do? And he goes, yeah, of course. He goes, I'll never forget the day we kicked this company off.
In fact, you should come over tonight and have a steak, and we should celebrate.
And so he says, why don't you come over for dinner tonight? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'd like to know right now what my promotion's going to be. So being a little entitled, obviously, I asked Brandon, can I ask you a question? He says, sure. And I said, I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts with my promotion on my 1 year, and kind of like, when are we going to talk about my base increase and a few other things? And Brandon kind of looks at me. He pauses, and he says, Mason, he goes, my responsibility, not now, not ever, is going to be to promote you. That's not my job. That's not my responsibility. I lean back in my chair at this time in his office, and I'm thinking to myself, is he for real? Like, is this really happening? And he's looking at me dead serious and says, your responsibility, Mason, is to put yourself in a position where those around you have already acknowledged and invested in you for what you've contributed to them in a way to where they've promoted you. Your team has promoted you. The environment has promoted you. And at that point, my responsibility is to only acknowledge the investment and the promotion that the team has acknowledged, or the team has demonstrated that you represent to them, to where I will acknowledge the promotion that they've given you. Basically saying, your job is to get out there and to demonstrate through influence that this organization, this team needs you in additional roles, additional responsibilities. And when that team demonstrates that they've put you in that position where they see you as the one that's providing more solutions, more confidence, more resources in these core areas, I will acknowledge the promotion they've already given you. Until then, you have a job to do.
Yeah, and I think for business owners that find that one employee who's crushing it, and they give them all their attention, and then they promote them and promote them and promote them up, but they never actually teach them that them as a top producer is great for the business. It can become a liability for the business if it's pushing other people away because they don't like the attitude of the person or they're treating them poorly. But to be a true leader and to if your goal is one day to be an entrepreneur or to own the business, this is why all those previous conversations were so important, then you being a top producer is what the expectation already is.
Right.
I'm not, like, if you are serious about your goals, you should be a top producer. But if you want to have a business that gives you life where you're not the top producer and you've created a culture of top producers, then you have to learn to transfer that to other people.
Right.
And what I was teaching you is great. I already expected, like, I'm not surprised you're number one. I'm not surprised you're coming in at 6 a.m, you're leaving at 8 o'clock at night. You're doing 10 times what anybody else is doing. Look, I'm not surprised. That's why I recruited you.
Yeah.
And that's why I've given you an opportunity to be a future partner. But for me to sit here and gloat over that with you, it's an expectation. Now, if you want to learn how to move to the next level of leading and running and owning a business, you now need to teach everybody around you how to do that. And that's a different skill set. And when you use that skill set, develop that skill set and the impact of that skill set.
Correct.
And then you ask me, well, what does that look like? And I said, when you have 3 to 5 guys doing what you're doing, then I'll know that they won't just view you as the top guy and they can't compete with you.
Yeah.
They'll actually view you as the guy that's helping them. So now you got to switch however you need to structure it to continue to be number one, but now find time to spend with everybody else to teach them what you do. And when they're all doing it, then I'll realize you have super, super contribution to the business. And now I got to acknowledge that.
But when you think about what you just shared, that is traditionally polar opposite of what everyone is taught, right? Or what everyone sees in the marketplace, which is if you get too good at something, right, now you might become a liability or somebody. I don't really want to share my secret sauce or my success because, I don't want Brandon to get the promotion before I get it. So if Brandon and I are working together on a project or we're in a team, I want to kind of keep my golden secrets and my secret sauce over here private.
So I can be the most important thing to the company.
I'm going to be the one that everyone always looks at and goes, Mason's going to get the promotion because he's so far ahead of everyone else. And so when Brandon shared that with me, I thought, you know what? Like, he's right. If I really want to grow in this organization, I have to think of this as, my job is not to just be the best at this and the only one that can do it, because at that point, Brandon's going to look at me as a liability. As a business owner, he's going to look at me and say, if Mason's the only one right now that is performing at this level and no one else is figuring out, if I lose him, he's not really an asset to me. He's a liability.
Yep.
So now Brandon might start making decisions around hedging and trying to figure out how to mitigate risk. And so when we talked that night, one of the things that Brandon shared with me as well was he's like, Mason, he goes, ultimately, if we want to build something really remarkable, if we want to go out there and absolutely dominate in our profession, we can't just do it because 1 or 2 of us are excited about it. We have to have an army of people that believe in it, that love it, and are doing it with us each and every day. So one of our objectives as a business is not just in our business operating plan or our strategy, it's our ability to create a flywheel where we are constantly, and intentionally spinning out these high performers, high producers, to where we have a whole army chest full of top performers, right? Not just 1 or 2, an entire company of them. And so it kind of changed my mindset where I came back to the office and I started thinking about the fact that it's not just about me making sure that I can do 100% or 120% of what's possible. Yes, I need to be able to demonstrate that if anyone's going to take an interest in me, right? If anybody's going to want to listen or take any advice from me, they're not going to want to listen to somebody that's the average performer or even the good performer. They're going to want to look at somebody that goes, holy cow, that's the unicorn. That guy is doing or achieving something that I didn't even dream was possible, which means that I had to be a hard doer, which means I had to be there and I had to work. I had to work a lot because I wasn't that smart. I wasn't that talented. I had to figure it out through trial and error. And I think that's where, for a lot of us out there, nothing amazing in your life comes through just showing up. Nothing remarkable happens because you just, happen to be in the right spot. You work for that. You have to fight for that. And you have to be able to be willing to every day double down and evolve who you are and change who you are, right? So as I kind of started going through this process, one of the things that came out of it was that, my responsibility was as much about perfecting and demonstrating what was possible in this role as it was about replicating that success in others. And so my engagement with my colleagues, my engagement with the team went from, kind of being a friend.
I'm number one.
And,
I'm number one.
And check me out. Hey guys, let's all celebrate too. My job is to be a player coach. I'm going to be the best player I could possibly be on this team, but I'm also going to do everything, even though I don't have the title, to be a coach, a mentor, and in return, bring these guys the same tools that I'm figuring out in my toolbox to where maybe it took me 6 months of trial and error and finding out the hard way to be able to get to this place. But now that I figured that out, I'm going to bring it to them right now and share it with them to where they should hopefully be able to get there today, tomorrow, next week, not 6 months from now.
And I would come in and I'd see you guys huddled up. And I see you in the war room together. I wouldn't come in and interrupt your meeting. I'd see you with 5 or 6 people, and you guys would all be talking, and you'd be up showing them on the whiteboard, or you'd be role-playing with them, because your job was to teach them to do the things that you're doing. And then when the overall business saw the success through everyone else, it was really easy when I went and told everybody, hey, I'm going to put Mason in charge of membership development. And everyone's like, well, we already thought he was in charge, because everyone had already accepted the fact that, and the people who were not coming in early and that weren't working with you, they had left anyway, so we didn't care about them. This is a really important thing because we teach, a couple points here. When we'd sit and talk about building that culture, we would also extend it out. We'd say, look, if we're going to be successful helping independent business owners build their business, we're not just learning this to develop our own business. We're going to have to teach our business owners how to do this too. So every time we'd have a conversation, it wasn't around you need to do this in order for you to get what you want. It was we need to develop a culture. We need to develop a process. We need to be an example, because if we're going to go out and help business owners do the same thing, we have to show them how we've done it, and we have to live it so that we can explain, I can feel for you. This is exactly where we were at. Here's what we did to accomplish it. And so before we could teach, we had to do. And that was always from the beginning. And so we would do these things, and then when we'd find breakthrough, we'd document, what did we do? How did we do it?
Correct.
What was the conversations? And then we would teach our owners that. And over the last 15 years, we've built we do over 300 things, but it's not just random stuff. It's like, here's exactly the process, and here's how you would have the conversation, and here's what you should say to them. Here's what they're going to say back to you. Here's what you need to, and we would meet with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and do this over and over and over and over. And that's why our business owners saw a 3.5 to 15 times increase over their peer groups in the industry. But for business owners, I want you to listen to this, because this isn't like hiring somebody and telling them to go figure it out. It's not abdication. It's delegation. It's delegation with intentionality. It's here's the big picture. And I had this conversation this morning on a podcast. When you're only talking about your present self, and you're only talking about to you your present self, the world can seem small and oppressive because it's hard. Whatever we're doing now is hard. And our present self is conditioned from all our past selves, all the experiences we've had. And so it's a very small view. When you can be talking about the future self, and so I want to be clear that everybody understood what Mason talked about. I never talked in a conversation with him about now. I talked to him about the future. I talked to him about what was important to him, what was important to me, what was important to the people that we serve. And the thing that we're doing now is only the stepping stone to get to the bigger picture. But if we would have always just been focused on the now, and we see this with all the business owners we work with, they can't break through the now because everything's a fire and they're professional fire people and they don't know where they're going.
Right. Brand and I have interviewed thousands of business owners. We've worked with thousands of business owners. We've had thousands of staff and teammates in these offices, and I'm always amazed when we would sit with a business owner and they would say, we don't have a Mason, right? Or I don't have a Mason. I don't have this person, and
I'm not lucky enough to get
right.
one.
And I sit back and I think to myself, there are each and every one of us. I mean, I came from very humble beginnings. I did not have a corporate family with all these fancy degrees and success. I had a mom and dad that had a small antique shop that was connected to our home with a dirt parking lot, and we sold spurs and brain irons, and I spent my young adult life on cattle ranches. But what I saw in that family business was it was all about people, and it was more so about the connection and your ability to intentionally connect with somebody to where they felt something. And one thing that we've always discussed is success is a feeling. Success is not a target. It's not an objective. It's not an outcome. How many of us get a gift, and after we get the gift, 3 weeks later, 2 months later, it's kind of like, I don't really remember what I got for Christmas. But success, you create that feeling, you'll be amazed at what can happen, which means that each and every one of us are the same. We have the same abilities. We have the same opportunities. It's a choice of whether or not we're willing to dig deep and listen to our gut, to our heart, to our soul, to our mind, and realize inside what is it that ultimately I believe I'm capable of. But sometimes we need a mentor and a coach to bring that out of us. That spark is there. You want to create a wildfire within your business. You want to be able to dominate the marketplace and do some incredible things that you only ever dreamed of. Take that spark that's in every one of your team members and bring it out.
Fan it.
Exactly.
Fan that. So, screw working in the business. Look, and to this extent, business owners, listen up, man. You need to get yourself disengaged from the day-to-day stuff, and you need to be running the fans on your employee. You need to be coaching them and mentoring them. And to that extent, it's really important to listen to people. So if you remember when I told Mason, sell your BMW, get rid of your fancy apartment, and drive the old pickup truck. Prove to me you're sincere. Then he asked me for the raise. Then I said, you go earn your own money. But in 2007 or 8, we had a recruiting meeting that he busted his ass. I said, here's your target. You need to get it with the team. And he had a team at this point. And he drove in like 50 or 60 people. And we had the best meeting we've ever had. And we signed up a whole bunch of new members that came in. And so this is really important because I knew if we succeeded for like 6 or 7 months, I was setting up, how am I going to acknowledge and recognize this monumental success we have as an organization? And so I would ask Mason, like, hey, if you could get any kind of car, what kind of car would you get? And he said, oh, I miss my BMW. And then when we're on the airplane or just sitting around, I'd say, well, if you did get a new BMW, like, what would you get? And he'd say, oh, the new 550i just came out, or the M5. And, oh, what color would it be? It'd be silver with black interior, and it'd be lowered, and it'd be this, and have that kit on it. And so I paid attention, right? I paid attention, always thinking to myself, what's the one thing I could do to prove to Mason how much I appreciate all that you were doing? So let's talk about that day.
So it was actually, so we kicked the company off, we started doing mailers in August, September of 2004, but officially kind of September, October, we kicked the company off in 2004. 24 months later, in 2006, at the end of 2006 in October, Brandon wanted us to have our biggest event ever at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And so traditionally, we were interviewing doctors and bringing roughly about 20, 25 guests to a practice development seminar. And this one, he wanted 50, and I thought he was crazy, right? But we did it. We brought 50 to this event. It was phenomenal. Some of the best, thought leaders in our profession, the key opinion leaders that everybody wanted to be able to have in their organization. We had done it 24 months into this business. We have the thought leaders of our profession. And so we come home, we're all excited. Everyone in the company is just jazzed, and we're all just, loving life. And Brandon says to me, he goes, what do you have going on for lunch today? And I said, well, working here at the office with the team. And he says, I need to go meet with an accountant on the other side of town. Do you want to come join me? And let's, we'll go out and do lunch and kind of celebrate the amazing event that we just had. And I said, sounds awesome. Yeah, let's do it, right? So we get in the car and we head out over to the accountant. And of course, the accountant's office is it's closed. There's nobody, there's nobody there. And Brandon acts like, and I'm not even sure if it even was. We just pulled up in the parking lot, and he looked around and said, "It looks like they're closed." And he was like, "Well, that's a bummer."
I said, "No, they're going to be back in an hour."
Yeah,
so
that's
we
right.
got an hour to kill.
And so he says, "Why don't we go across the street? There's a BMW dealership, and let's go kick the tires and check out some cars." And of course, I was like, "This is awesome! Yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Let's go check out some new product from BMW." So we head over to the dealership, and we get out, and we go inside, and we walk onto the showroom floor, and immediately catches my eye is this beautiful, stunning 550i, silver on black, M5 aero package, right, with the M5 wheels, the body kit. Is amazing of an M5 in a 550 that you can get, right? So I beeline it straight over here to this 550i, and as I'm walking up to it, I'm telling Brandon, let's go check this one out. And there are 15 cars on the showroom floor, but this one right here, right out of the gate, grabbed my attention instantly. So as we walk over there, I start to walk around the car, and I'm just in awe of it. And as I look at the plexiglass stand on the showroom floor that traditionally have the spec sheet on the vehicle and all the options, is not the spec sheet, but instead it's a letterhead from the dealership, but it says, "Congratulations, Mason Walker, for reaching all your goals. Love, Brandon."
Still makes me freaking cry right now. I'm
And
crying.
I'm
I'm not lying, man. This is what you guys look right now, business owners. You want to build a relationship with people that are in the trenches with you, and you want that relationship to last forever. Do stuff for people, like catch them off guard. Do stuff. Bring dreams to them. Like this was set up for like 6 months. I just needed the business to work, and I was listening, right? So getting personal, professional, financial goals from your team, which is now something we took that moment. We said, how do we help every business owner create a moment like this? And it actually became a process that we developed that we've taught hundreds and hundreds of times over. We use it in our company. Look, I would have got him the M5, but when I called the insurance company, and they said, we will not insure him because he's under 25 years old or 26 or whatever the number was.
Probably not a good company car to get a 24-year-old young man or 25-year-old young man. I barely had, I think, the ability to rent a car, more or less drive a M5.
So I told him, hey, look, actually, I canceled the accounting appointment. Why don't you hang out here for an hour with the dealer, go through the car. It had every single option you could have ever dreamed of because I got down to the details of everything you'd want. Aero kit, everything. And you messed with them for an hour and then you got to drive it. I said, take the rest of the day off. Go enjoy it.
Yeah, it was, 13 years later, I still get chills talking about it and thinking about it, and I can put myself right there. And, I think for all of us that are listening as teammates and business owners, I empower you to think about what could you do to make that level of commitment and demonstrate that level of investment as an employee or a key member of the team to your leadership, to your business owners, to where they want to step up and invest in you and have your back at that level, because it's a two-way street, right? I could have easily sat back and expected that Brandon needs to provide for me a greater quality of life because I left a good gig with decent income. Or I could look at that and say, what do I want to ensure that I'm demonstrating to Brandon that I'm all in with him and everything that I can possibly do to support his vision. And in return, when moments like that come up as business owners, if you and I only rely on the traditional structure of a base increase or a spot bonus or just simply performance compensation to inspire my team to push the envelope and truly achieve what's possible, you're missing the boat. Because people like me that potentially are waiting there for a 3% opportunity are not going to stick around for that.
Yep.
What that showed me was Brandon was willing to invest in my goals, right? Not my job, but me as a person. Things that mattered to me personally, professionally, or financially. He was willing to invest in me. So big difference.
And I moved your base. I nonchalantly said, I think I moved you to like 120 grand or something.
Couldn't afford the gas on it.
By the way, your insurance bill is going to be huge. So I just gave you a big raise. But I think you got the car and you got your raise. Right. And when the world was melting down in 2008, 2009, 2010, we were growing. We were on the Inc. 500 list, and we were growing. We were one of the fastest growing companies in the United States, and we never felt any of the pressure of the global meltdown. And we were doing our thing. We were doing it together. In 2009, I had brought a president in that was good with the numbers and good and had some previous experience. He worked for me. I brought a president in, and he was there for a couple of years, and he was a high contributor as well. And yet, from a cultural standpoint, there were some issues. And down that road, and he was a dear friend of mine, so I was caught between my most loyal guy and my dear friend who technically had remarkable skill sets. Yeah. But there was a cultural issue, and there was a little bit of a turf war on who was going to do what in the organization. And you came to me, and this was kind of your last big challenge. You had survived all the other people I'd put in different positions, and some of those guys only made it 90 days, some of them, and you learned a lot from those people. I'm learning a lot. When a guy comes in and Dawson says, don't make any decisions for 90 days until we build confidence, and you make 3 different decisions, and then he walks in and pours you a drink and says, hey, it was nice meeting you. You need to pack your shit and get out of my building. And so like you watched all this stuff, but this was kind of the last big challenge for you, and it was a big enough challenge it could have pushed you away because this person was also very close to me. They had a lot of power, very technically inclined. and I was letting this percolate
Mm-hmm.
and watching, because you both were high contributors, and that person made the mistake. And this was what happened with me, is I was waiting to see who was going to try to exert power over the other one versus stick to contributing to the business and the people in the business. Who was going to actually try to be the one that could leverage and take that first preemptive, it's you or me, buddy, because then that told me which one was going to be self-focused, self-centered, versus focused on the organization and our bigger goals. And I let that play out. And why don't you talk about your lunch?
Yeah, I mean, power is an interesting element within any business, and there's power struggles that happen every day within the business when it comes to whether it's leadership or business owners or team members that are trying to juxtaposition and want to be the person that has all the answers. This individual that Brandon's referencing was an incredible grinder, but he definitely had more of a power was control for him. It was about authority. It was about the ability to be the one that was ultimately dictating the decisions that were being made. And for myself and for the rest of the team, there were some of us that didn't feel that really, for a variety of reasons, I wanted to be in that environment anymore. And so it was this interesting dilemma within our organization, which is we have a founder and CEO that started this business with kind of one vision. We now have a president in here who's definitely exercising his authority and his power with wanting to control the environment and I would say very much dictate to the team what expectations were. And then there was myself, the first employee, but not necessarily a.
And you've worked your way up. But you were a VP at this point, right?
I was a vice president, but I didn't have nearly the equity that the president had. I didn't have the income that
and
the
that president
had.
had worked with me 10 years previous in my previous audiology and hearing business. So we had a lot of
So there's a feeling for you as a really, I'd say, a key employee and a key contributor, which is, for the most part, I've always looked at myself as a team member, right? Not necessarily the title. So sitting there in that period of the business, there was this dilemma of where do I go? What do I do? Because this individual is very much the person that, from an authority standpoint, I should respect and support. But from a gut and from a feeling and from just a general kind of persona, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so he asked to have lunch with me. And he said, I think we need to sit down.
Well, you came to me several times. And I'd say, just like every other time, what are you learning from him?
Right, yep.
What are the good things?
Yep.
And you'd say, well, his technical skills are good. His
work ethic is
ridiculous.
Solid. He grinds it out 24/7.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he was serious about the business, and you would take these good things, and I say, what are the things that if you had his position, you would never do to somebody else? And I would always point you to that, and I'd say, okay, here's the ultimate test, Mason. You can leave because you were I'm not sure I'm still
right.
I say you can give up and you can leave, or you can do the right things for the business every time, and then you can and if somebody else tries to pull rank or power, then you can trust me. That was another trust. You can trust me. Have I ever done anything to violate our trust? Have I ever not had your interest, at the top of my priority? So you can trust me, and you can let this play out, and then knowing I'm going to make the right decision at the right time, or you could preemptively remove yourself from it. You have to make that choice.
And I think that's a great point, because in that conversation, Brandon, asked me, says, Mason, do you think this do you believe this will only be this will only ever be the individual that creates a challenge for you? Or do you think there might be more of these types that are out there to where no matter where you go, you're going to have somebody you're going to bump up against, especially, and I think for those of you that are listening that are employees that are trying to push the envelope and reach for more, you're always going to bump up against somebody, right? Somebody's going to, rub shoulders with you the wrong way, because if you're moving the dial and you're shaking it up and you're pushing what's possible, somebody else is going to look bad, or somebody else is going to feel intimidated by that. And so, when you kind of, you brought that to my attention in that moment, and I thought, you know what, Brandon's right. It's not really this individual that I have an issue with. This is just going to be part of the kind of the business evolution, my evolution, where there are going to be moments like this, challenges like this. And the real question is, am I going to give up on my dreams and walk from this opportunity because of one person? And I thought to myself, absolutely not. And that's when I came back and thought, you know what? It's not about me having an emotional issue or a personal issue with this individual. It's about the fact that I believe there's still so much more that I want to contribute and give. And this individual is limiting our ability, and in return, my ability from doing that. So when he asked me to have lunch and sit down, we went to a restaurant down the street from the office. It was, again, instantly very transactional. It was very much about control. It was very much about authority. It's clear, Mason, you're not respecting me as the president. It's clear that we're not, you're not following my direction. You're not following my requests. And I'm sitting there this whole lunch thinking to myself, this guy doesn't get it. All I want from him is to be viewed in the same way that Brandon's viewed me, which is as an equal, as a partner, as his teammate. I am tired of listening to somebody speak to me like I'm replaceable, that I'm just an employee, that I'm just collecting a check here, and that he can find somebody better if I don't like it here. And so as I sat there at this lunch and he continued to kind of go around, you need to fall in line, you need to start kind of, getting on board with what I'm asking, I realized in that moment that I can't fault this person. He has, he has a limited belief system and a limited view, and I'm already surpassed that. But out of respect to him, he doesn't see that or understand that. So when he came back at that lunch, or came at me in that lunch and said, we need to figure this out, because if we go back to the office and you and I are not on the same page, Brandon, one of us is going to get fired. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, you're right. I do know, Brandon, one of us is going to get fired. And what I do know is that Brandon wants to create an organization with 20, 30, 50 Mason types that are fully invested, fully committed, and will do whatever it takes to see this company win. Not one person is trying to control based around ego. So I said, I'm willing to go back to that office, and I'm willing to not be in alignment with you, and I want to roll those die. He backtracked in that conversation and immediately went from putting me in a position where trying to insinuate that I was going to be the one that was going to be fired to now trying to offer up, well, what do you need? What do you want? And in that moment...
So he tried to bully you. Then he tried to negotiate you.
And now he's trying to buy me off. And I remember thinking in that moment, I've come from nothing or very little, right? I've worked my entire life to be able to get to this shot, right? To be in a company that I believe in, that I love, to have a leadership opportunity. And am I really, what's allowed for me to get there? Staying true to this, to me, to who I am at my core, not limiting myself or sacrificing myself or just kind of, taking my expectations of myself down a notch because somebody wants to try to control them. And I thought, I'm not going to be bought. I'm not going to be controlled. And he, in that same conversation, said, how much I make in base, and it was roughly about 60% more than what I was making in total compensation. And he says, I'll match it. And I looked at him and I said, I pass. And he says, you're passing on that big of? He goes, we go back right now. He goes, I'm the president. I can literally grow your income by 60% with one signature when we go back. And I said, I understand, and no thank you. And then he sat back and he looks at me and he goes, so what is it? It's my equity. You probably want more equity, right? You want more equity in the company. And I said, I have a desire to be a stronger partner in the company, but I don't need your equity. And he goes, well, what if I come back and I tell Brandon that I want to figure out a way to give you some of my equity? And I said, no, you don't have anything that I want, because I know what right now exists for me is an opportunity to go out and to help build this company and to support Brandon's vision, and that I believe wholeheartedly he will invest in those that are investing in that. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, with or without you.
Yep.
And we left.
And then he came in, told me that I saw each of you individually, and you both gave me your iteration on what happened. And I basically just said there were some other things going on, and I just said, I'm going to support the people that have the bigger vision, the bigger purpose, and I made the decision, and I fired him. And God bless him, because he went out and started a great business. He's created a huge net worth.
But he did it the right way. He picked a good partner, which
Yeah.
he needed.
Yeah.
Somebody to compliment him where his weaknesses
That's right.
were.
He ended up another guy we respect. He picked his partner. They went off, started their business. It was very successful, and maybe that was the thing that needed to happen for
Correct,
him too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
and,
totally.
And I think he's changed how he's viewing his employees because as a leader now he has those employees, so he can't. He's understanding something maybe he didn't understand, but the bottom line is
sometimes it takes those traumatic moments, right? It takes a catalyst
that's right,
of
to
some
wake you
sort.
up.
Yeah.
So I kudos to them, and then you and I went on and we kept building the business, and we just destroyed it. I mean, we were growing, we were doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling, and we had nothing in our way. You were vice president, and then we had another big meeting in Vegas. And I think you and I said, hey, let's go get some ice. So listen, owners, sometimes it's the impromptu things. It's when you feel that now is the time. Don't wait. Don't make it too official. Like the BMW, I staged it. I set it up. I knew what I was going to do. In this particular case, I knew I was going to do it. I knew I wanted to do it. I just wanted to find the right time. And we were sitting there celebrating our success the night before our big meeting started. And I said, let's go down and get some ice together.
Well, So I want to pause for just a second here because this is the difference between always being focused on a destination and end result or being open and willing to look at like detours, right? I do not think, knowing Brandon, he's always been focused on the end result. And so generally he has a very specific view or plan. And in the moment, he was willing to take a detour at this event because it felt right. And I think that's something that's really important for all of us out there. Don't underestimate the detours. Sometimes taking the scenic route is absolutely beautiful and amazing, and you discover something you never knew existed, which is why the moment that he took this detour at this event, he called me up on stage first, and he handed me an award, right? And on this award was the President's Award. And he in front of 800 of our guests and all these people, and I'm there, and I'm thinking to myself, well, this is really kind. He's giving me an award here in front of all of these, members of ours and our guests.
We had the president, which was me, the President Award. We had the Maxwell Award. We had the Collins Award. We had all these awards that we'd give out. So I gave him the President's Award.
So he gives me the President's Award, and then Brandon says after, he says, what makes this award really special is this will be the last time the President's Award's ever given because it'll be from this day forward known as the Partner Award. Because Mason is now the president of Audigy, and I'm standing there on the stage looking at him, looking at the 800 people that are out there.
And they went crazy.
Everyone stands up, roaring ovation. I'm crying, and Brandon says, "Congratulations, Mason! You're now the president of Audigy." And I'm just like, I'm in tears. I had no idea. Absolutely floored. I'm thinking I would have done my hair differently. I would have picked a better suit. And so we get off the stage. And we go back behind stage, and he's getting his mic taken off. And I look at him, and I said, "Are you serious? Really? Like, we didn't discuss this. Where was like the plan for this? Like, this is a big move. I need transition plans. I need to set up. Like, I go to all this stuff that I think we need to do to successfully set this roll up, right?" And Brandon looks at me, and he goes, "Mason," he goes, "we've dated long enough. I knew if I asked you to marry me, you would say yes." And I laugh, and we hug it out. So now we go up to
finish
the day.
That's right.
Finish the day. We go up to celebrate in the suite, and he says, I've grabbed this amazing bottle of bubbles. Let's go celebrate with popping the champagne. And I said, yeah, let's do it, right? So our significant others are there. So we go out to get this bucket of ice. And as I'm walking with the bucket of ice to the ice machine, Brandon says, "So how big?" And I was like, "What do you mean how big?" He goes, "How big's your picture of success? Like how big is your dream now?" And I was walking to the ice machine, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how big is my dream now? Well, this has not been planned. But I share with Brandon in that conversation kind of where I'm at this stage in my life, with the business and personally, and kind of what my picture is. And he looks at me and he says, "I'm all in." And he shakes my hand.
I asked you, what is if you could just dream right now, what's the number?
Yeah, what's
the number that you would look back and say, if I made this much money with the decisions I've had to make and the stuff I've had to do, what's the number that you would say I hit a home run? Like I actually did something huge and significant.
And I said $10 million.
$10 million.
Because, and at that time, $10 million to me was an ungodly amount of money. I could never even dream.
And this was 2000.
This is 2010
or 11. So
September of 2011.
So we were half the size. So 10 million at that point, I'm thinking, Jesus, that's what I wanted to get at. No, I'm just kidding. No, but when he said 10 million, then I said to him, okay, then in order to get 10 million, I said, what'd I tell you?
Brandon said we need to sell the company for north of 100 million because my number would then need to be 100 million, right? And I said, okay.
So I said with our members.
With our members,
I said we need to get close to 200 million. 200
yeah.
million because my number's 100.
Yeah.
So, and I said I will make sure you get 10% of whatever I get.
Right, exactly. And it was a handshake, right?
Yeah. We never put it in writing.
We shook on it. We got our ice, and that's it. I had a $100 million commitment to him. He had a $10 million commitment to me, and I was 29 years old.
29. Fast forward to July of 2016, we sold the business, and
I got a package for almost 11 million.
For almost 11 million. Look, there's so many fabulous stories. I think we could add to it, but I mean that exemplified it. But I think here's another thing. A few years previous to that, I had his sister speaking on stage, and I had Mason speaking on stage. And it was the first time his sister was ever going to speak on stage, and she was really nervous. And her parents never saw her doing those kind of things. So we pushed her, and they never saw Mason do those kind of things.
Right.
So I invited his and her parents to fly in, and Ashley was speaking, so I had Ashley's parents come in as well. And I set them in the front row of the event. When they walked up to speak, they didn't know they were there. And I had their parents all there to get to watch them do this. The reason I bring this up is the more you connect your people to understanding that you're interested and inspired to impact their lives through different things that you can do, not just professionally, but personally and financially, you are going to harness an army of people who are desperate for this kind of relationship. And the art in building the business is building it through people who care about the business as much as you do. And I think I'll let you say the last word, but this is the one thing. Mason and I sat down and we built a whole track. Like everything I coached him on and the things we did and the things I said and the coin toss and the firing people or giving him an opportunity, like all the stuff that he learned that I worked with him on and the things I did, the things he did that built my confidence, the things I did to build his confidence, we layered and listed all that out. And we are going to create an intrapreneur, a 10X employee track so we can teach people, both the business owner and the individual that's working for someone who has a dream and has a goal, how to step by step work together in order for everyone to accomplish their goals.
Amen. And I would say the only other thing I'd add to that is know that each and every one of us that are out there have the ability to do something absolutely remarkable if we're willing to take the time and listen and understand what that could represent to the team and most importantly to the vision of the organization so all of us can rally behind it. So destination for me is key, number one. Second, for myself, is you have to have the resources. You have to be willing to put the tools in your toolbox to go out there and do something exceptional. And number three, you need to have the confidence that no matter what and the courage that comes your way, that we can and will persevere and be able to push through. And so when the going does get tough, the tough have to get going. So don't give up. It's right there. You can get it. Let's go do it together.
Bam. Thank you for listening to The B. Dawson Show.